It was a cold Tuesday evening when Senator John Kennedy decided to do something unusual. Instead of heading home after a long day in Washington, he quietly drove across town to visit one of his family-owned stores. No staff knew he was coming. He wore an old jacket, a cap pulled low, and walked in like just another customer. He wanted to see the store not through the lens of polished reports or numbers, but through the eyes of the people who actually worked there. As soon as he entered, the store felt different than what he expected. It was quiet, almost heavy. The shelves were neat, customers were browsing, but there was a lingering tension in the air. He walked slowly toward the checkout counters, and that's when he saw here the young cashier, no older than her early 20s, with tear-streaked cheeks, struggling to scan items with trembling hands. Kennedy stepped aside, pretending to browse candy near the counter, but his eyes and ears stayed focused. The line moved forward, and as each customer left, she whispered an apology. "I'm so sorry. It's just been a hard day." Most people nodded politely, though a few grew impatient. Finally, when the line cleared, she lowered her head, wiping her tears quickly, and whispered to the bagger beside her, unaware of who was listening. "I can't keep doing this," she said. "Rent is late again, and my son needs medicine. They cut my hours last week, and if it keeps up, I'll lose everything." Management doesn't care. They just want numbers. Sometimes I wonder if anyone up there even knows what it's like to live like this. Her voice cracked. "I don't think the owner even knows who we are." Kennedy's heart sank. He had come here expecting to find small inefficiencies, maybe a complaint about long shifts or stubborn customers. But this was raw, human pain. His business, the one bearing his family name, was meant to provide honest jobs and stability. Yet here stood the young mother, drowning in silence, believing she was invisible. He quietly purchased this small item and walked out, but he didn't drive away. Instead, he sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel, replaying her words in his head. This wasn't just about money. This was about dignity, about the unseen struggles of those who worked the hardest. That night, he made calls, not to managers or executives, but directly to the district supervisors. He wanted answers. Why were hours being cut? Why hadn't anyone reported the concerns of employees? The responses were defensive, filled with numbers and policies. But Kennedy knew what he had heard, the truth spoken through tears. The next morning, he returned not in disguise this time, but as himself. When he walked through the doors, employees froze, whispering in surprise. The young cashier at the counter turned pale, unsure if she was in trouble for what she had said. Kennedy approached her gently. "Ma'am," he said softly, "yesterday, I heard you, and I want to thank you for being brave enough to speak your heart, even if you didn't know who was listening." Her eyes widened as tears filled them again. He placed a reassuring hand on the counter. "You're not invisible. None of you are. This store is not just about profit, it's about people. That's going to change, starting today." He gathered the employees right there on the floor. Customers watched curiously as Kennedy spoke with a tone that carried both authority and compassion. He promised fair scheduling, better communication, and immediate attention to wages and benefits. He announced an employee assistance program to help with emergencies like medicine for children. But more importantly, he promised to return often, unannounced, to listen. The cashier stood speechless, her tears now different tears of relief. For the first time, she felt seen, not as a worker behind a register, but as a human being with a story. Weeks later, the store transformed, morale lifted, turnover dropped, and customers noticed the difference. The employees felt valued, and it showed in their service. Kennedy kept his word. He returned often, sometimes quietly, sometimes openly, but always listening. And that young cashier, she didn't just keep her job. She was promoted to supervisor within months, her resilience shining through once she had the support she needed. The story spread quietly, then widely. How a senator walked into his own store in disguise, heard what no boss wants to hear, and instead of turning away, chose to change everything. In the end, Kennedy learned a lesson himself. Leadership is not about standing above people, but about standing with them. Sometimes the most powerful truths are spoken in whispers, And the greatest changes begin with listening. The message was clear: every person matters, every voice deserves to be heard. And true leadership means carrying not just the title of boss or senator, but the responsibility of compassion. That single night in the store became more than just a moment. It became a reminder for Kennedy, for his employees, and for anyone who heard the story that no one is ever truly invisible, as long as someone chooses to listen.